Hi everyone, Kathy Beltran with Sacred Dance with Trance. I'm super excited today to finally have Andrew Codling here. You should know Andy. I'm saying Andy because
Yeah,
Andy's okay. Andy is a medium and a tutor, and he's also a fellow member of our group. And I'm just grateful to have you here, Andy, to help me help others with the trance.
absolutely. Kathy, thank you so much for welcoming me.
Oh my,
It's a great pleasure and an honor for me too.
thank you very much. So how I typically like to start this off with is to ask how everything started for you. And I love when members, they go right to the very beginning, even when they were a child. People love to be able to relate. So how did mediumship start for you?
Well, I wish I could go back to when I was a child. For me, it didn't happen like that. Um, I've always been very sensitive to the world around me and kind of to people. But for me, I had a profound experience about 2011, 2012, and that was what got me into mediumship. So it was like the middle of the morning, as in I was asleep and it was just starting to get light and I was woken up. And standing at the side of my bed was my grandfather.
Wow.
Only he had passed away 20 years before that.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And I said to him, I said, what are you doing here? And he didn't say anything. And I hugged him. I gave him a hug. I could feel the bristles on his face against my skin. And the most overwhelming feeling that really blew my mind was just the feeling of utter love. Absolutely, almost indescribable. There's love and then there's love. And this was one of those where it makes your heart skip a beat. And I just thought, what's going on? Anyway, he disappeared and I went to sleep. And then I woke up and I told my wife about it. And how do you explain that? How do you even begin to understand what on earth has just happened? I had no understanding at all. And that was the very beginning.
Oh my gosh. You know, there's a lot of people, I mean, myself included, that have had those experiences later on in life too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it just puts you in an area where all of a sudden you just want to search and find out why this happened to you. So
Absolutely. That is exactly my thoughts. It was like, why, how, what, what even just happened there?
Mhm.
And I kind of, I'm pretty skeptical by nature, or at least I used to be. So for me, it used to be of, if it exists, prove it. If it's true, prove it. Everything had to be kind of, I saw everything from a scientific point of view. And here was something I could not explain whatsoever. So what did I do?
did you end up, were you like on the internet researching, or were you lucky enough to have other friends that might help you with that?
Well, yeah, it was the internet. It was the internet at the time. So like I say, this was 2011, 12. So I was going online, but where do you start? I mean, what was it that even happened? So anyway, my aunt, she does like hands-on healing, spiritual healing. And anyway, I was telling her about it and she said, oh, there's a workshop coming up, just a one-day workshop, and it's for people that are completely new to mediumship. And so I said, well, can I come along? And she said, well, of course. So I went along and, you know, introducing you to opening up your chakras and closing them down and connecting to spirit. And all these things were like, what's a chakra? What does this even mean? But, you know, how does it affect me? And I went to that one, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, there was another one, like a follow-up day, and then a few weeks later, another one. And we would be paired up with people, and then I was working with one lady, and we had to get someone from the spirit world to connect to her. And anyway, of course, these names start appearing in your head, and you're thinking, what's going on? And I said, well, I have so-and-so name, and she said, yeah, I understand it. And I said, then I have this name, and then I have something else. And she said, yeah, I understand it. I said, are you sure? And she said, yeah. She said, that's my sister. She says, and that's my brother's name. And that's the place that I live. Oh, right. So I thought, what's happening? You know, so these, you know, kind of for me, it's like someone shows me a photograph and it's gone in a second. And I'm thinking, what was that name or what was that image? And that was kind of how it was starting. But I didn't know that's what clairvoyance was. So it was, what's happening, and is this just all in my head? You know, am I making this up? So
Well, I love that. I love that the fact that this happened to you when you're older. There's so many, it doesn't matter how old you are. Something, if you're supposed to do this work, it's going to come in. Something's going to come in and put you on that path. So,
yeah,
but I'm sure a lot of people can relate to the beginning of what are the chakras, you know, and all that. So that is really cool. I love that story, and it's so wonderful
yeah,
that you had an aunt. You said aunt, right? That did the
yes,
healing. So you had
yeah.
that, and that is really cool. So I'm guessing that somewhere after you're going in through your journey and learning all about mediumship,
Yeah, yeah.
what got you into the trance area?
Wow. So the guy that was running the workshops, I looked on his Facebook page and it said development circles, space is available. So I reached out to him and said, you know, I've been to your 3 workshops. Do you think this is something that I could do, a development circle? And he said, you know, sure, come along. So once a week we would go and we would sit upstairs in the room, and there'd be about 5 or 6 of us. And we'd do an opening prayer, and there'd be some music and a bit of meditation. And I would, as I was sitting there, I was starting to feel like my heart was beating out of my chest, like I got the chills right down my back. So I was almost freezing cold, and I mean really freezing cold. And I could feel myself expanding, and it was like I was growing and stuff like that. And I was thinking, what's happening here? And all these experiences were really, it took me a lot to try and understand what was happening. And you would, of course, you would ask the medium and say, you know, why did I feel like this? And sometimes you got answers and sometimes I didn't. And as I was connecting to kind of my spirit team, as I understand now, there was, they would maybe show me a word, and then I would remember it and I would Google it. Oh, what does so-and-so mean? And one of them showed me Pine Ridge, and he spelt it Pyneridge. So I typed it up, and there wasn't a place called Pine Ridge in that spelling, but there was if I changed the Y for an I. And it turns out that one of the guys that kind of walks this journey with me, that's where he lived. He lived in Pine Ridge in South Dakota or North Dakota, I can't remember where. And that was the very first piece of information he ever gave me to identify who he was.
And would this be like your control or somebody that's coming in,
Yeah, I guess he's, if we say control
or even
well,
just
my principal guide, he was the first person I ever knew about, and he's the person that's still with me now, and he's the overseer. He makes sure that I'm safe, and I've got a picture of him now. I'm looking at a picture of him now, and
oh man,
he's a wonderful guy. Yeah.
did you have that drawn or?
Did, yeah, psychic artist Lynn Cottrell.
Oh my goodness, yes, I've been trying to get Lynn, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful work. So, oh my goodness, you'll definitely have to share a picture of that so people.
I will share a picture with you, because I know that when we work, when he speaks, when we're in trance, and when people say, "Who are you?" he doesn't like to be known. He doesn't like, because in that circle, so we would share. It went from being every month that we would sit, and not sorry, every month, every week we would sit, and then he changed it so that every other week we would sit to develop trance. And I would sit there, and these images and these words would appear in my mind, and I just thought it was me. I wouldn't say anything. Week after week after week, and maybe I would feel the impetus to say a word, and it might be hello, and then I would be convinced that it was me, and I would just shut up. it's not the spirit world, it's just me, it's my imagination, and I wouldn't say any more. And then as the weeks go by, you get a little bit more confidence, and you maybe say 2 or 3 words, and then maybe a sentence. But that took a long time. I really struggled to kind of have the confidence that they were there, and it really was the spirit world.
You know what? I love this. I love what you're sharing, because you know how you describe your feelings at first. You know, the freezing cold,
Yeah,
the heart beating, and so that's what I want people to understand, that they might experience
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And you seeing the words and fighting within yourself to say, no, that's just me. And how long did it finally take you, if you could remember, before you finally said, okay, I'm just going to say what I see?
I guess it took a good number of weeks before I would say a single word. I would feel their presence, and as they blend in with my aura, I would feel their presence, and I could feel myself kind of merging with their energy. So I would feel their personality starting to impress upon me. As I understand it now, I didn't know that's what was happening then. So it was all very strange, and I'm thinking, am I having a heart attack? What's going on here? And so it was all very new to me. So I would feel their energy, and then maybe a word would appear, and I think, why is I don't know, love? Why is love appearing in my mind? And because I'd be convinced that it was just my mind and it wasn't the spirit world trying to communicate, I would sit there and I would feel this urge to speak, and I just wouldn't let it go. And so maybe a couple of 3 months, and because there were other people watching, so I was sat in a chair, say like this, and there were people maybe in front of me whose turn it wasn't. And I would think, you know, they probably think I'm stupid. They'll laugh if I say anything. I feel stupid. Why am I sitting here? And this is ridiculous. And then, of course, 10 or 15 minutes later, and it'd be someone else's turn. And then, of course, I'd then be kicking myself, because I'd think, damn, I wish I had a spoke, and I didn't.
And so no, see, this is great, because
Yeah.
I know people, you know, they ask questions about, well, you know, I start feeling this way, and I just want to say that, you know, they're saying it's them. So they all have that too,
Yeah.
to just start saying something.
Yeah.
So with your circle, your development circle, people also, like, you know, some people were thinking that, you know, it could only be one person that was sitting to develop, and everybody else had to support that one person the entire time. But what you're saying is that everybody took turns and
Yeah.
supported that. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you keep your members? Did the members stay together for a long period of time, or did they constantly change?
Well, this was another guy. This was another medium. I mean, I wouldn't even have classed myself as a medium. Of course, we all are at different stages. But so yeah, the membership changed. You know, people had come and go. Sometimes it just wasn't the circle for them, and yeah, so the membership changed. But the general format was that we'd all get a turn to sit, to allow the spirit world to speak through us. Some of us would do it, some of us wouldn't, and then as the weeks and the months went on, you know, it got that we would have a good conversation, you know, between us and the spirit world. So yeah, it was good progression. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it.
Um, when you know, the first words that started to come out, how long before you were able to speak much longer?
Probably a few months.
That's actually
Probably,
really good. It's really,
yeah. Well, but I was still convinced it was me.
but that's the whole thing. I guess you have to
This
just
is it.
keep doing it and just have that faith and just start talking, and then things get better. Um, I was wondering, when did you have that confidence? When did that confidence come in where you knew it was them coming through?
Okay, so I've said to you that the gentleman that works with me, he gave me that one word. Then in that same circle, the medium would often say, who are you? What's your name? Where did you live? Were you married? What was your wife called? How many children did you have? So it felt a little bit like an interrogation. So anyway, one day, I felt this impetus, this real urge, and I was like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't say this. But this real urge came out. And he said, my name is not important, only the message that I bring. And then the medium said, well, if you're not going to tell me who you are, you're not allowed to speak. And I was like, oh, right, okay.
Wow.
So anyway, a short while before that, I kept getting these symbolic images. And so the guy gave me, this is my spirit team, he gave me 2 symbolic images, and one after the other, together, that gave me his name in his tribe. That was what he was known by. So then I was like, whoa, hang on a minute, I recognize that name, and I went and researched it, and sure enough, it was him. And so the that kind of gave me a little bit more confidence. And then I thought, well, did I imagine that image? Did I somehow imagine those images that actually were a Native American name? And it's still all in my mind. So we progressed. And then Steve Newton, who you interviewed, is a real good friend of mine, and he's probably been more instrumental than anyone else in helping me on my journey. So we're good friends. And anyway, he was running a 1-day trance workshop in a local town. And I thought, this sounds interesting. We'll go along. And we went along, and we kind of done the exercises, and, you know, we got into some good habits, and we connected for the first time, myself and that guy. And that emotion and that feeling of love between the spirit world and you, when you really feel it in your heart, that kind of does something different. You know, that really isn't your mind playing tricks, because this is your emotions. It's your feeling, and you can't trick that. And so that was probably the first time that I was like, yeah, this is a bit real, and that's definitely not a tear forming. No, I'm not crying for sure, because that was how it moved me. When you connect with your spirit team, truly, you feel it. You don't need to see it. And that was it for me.
Yeah,
That was that moment.
the way you're describing it, it's like when you first saw your grandfather and that unconditional love. So having that feeling when you're connected to your spirit team. You talked about good habits, and you're able to connect more or deeper with your guide.
Yeah.
What do you mean by good habits? Was it just the way you sat? Or?
Well, it was doing stuff like being taught to set my intent. What did I want to do when I connected to the spirit world? Why was it important to set my intent? And kind of to understand not the serious nature, that's probably the wrong way of phrasing it, the understanding why it's important to set good, solid foundations, do things the right way, which is by setting our intent and knowing what we want to do, and understanding actually how we connect. How do I connect to the spirit world? How do they connect to me? What's the process? And it was kind of having someone to answer all the questions that I felt were silly, but they were the questions that were bugging me. You know, how does it happen? Why should I set my intent? Don't they already know? And I love the feeling of the connection with spirit world. So why is it a problem to connect all the time? I didn't see it as a problem. Well, of course, you need to be disciplined in your work. And I would just connect because I like the feeling.
You know what? I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, that feeling there. I like that you bring up intent. And I completely believe, like, especially in the group, I don't care what question is asked, because no question is stupid. We're afraid to ask the questions. So, you know what? So far, I'm loving this information that you're putting through, because there's so many people that want to know these little things.
Yeah.
Symbolic images. So when you were sitting, even during the beginning, you were there. You were there, still present.
Yeah.
Some people say that they, leave at some point. They take off. Have you ever experienced that, or you're just there? You're still there with some presence.
Okay, even now, I also sit to develop physical mediumship.
Okay.
So that's an aspect of mine. But this was probably one of the main points that really changed my development, is understanding that it was okay and it was normal for me to be aware of everything. That wasn't a problem. What I thought I had to do was to close my eyes, and I would ask the spirit world to entrance me, and I would fall asleep. And then they would bring me back, having spoken some philosophy, and that would be how it works. But of course, it's wrong. Maybe 1 in a million people that may happen to. They may fall unconscious, and philosophy may be shared. And yeah, it works for some people, but very, very few. I thought that's how I had to go. And so every time I sat, I felt I failed because I was aware of what was being said. That was my massive barrier. Because I was aware of what I was saying, I thought I was failing every single time. And then suddenly you have someone like Steve and other people say to you, no, it's normal for you to be aware of it. And I was like, hallelujah.
This is great because people want to know that. You know, they think that's why they're hesitant in what they're seeing.
Yeah,
They're thinking it's them. So this is wonderful. Let me go back to the intent. Every time that you would sit,
yes,
whether that would be for, just say, for example, people might sit and they might do healing. So the intent for every time you sit is important.
yes,
Okay. Okay. And I definitely want everybody to know that. It's a very important thing. Um,
yeah.
when
I mean,
um, did you, with your, like, say, the philosophy, was that
yeah.
was that your intent in the beginning that you wanted
Well,
that to do?
yeah, if you had have said to me back then, what is trance? I thought trance was philosophy. So I thought the reason for connecting and doing trance was just for a guide or some person in the spirit world to say something wise. I thought that's what it was. I didn't truly understand what trance was. And I didn't understand that I was in an altered state. I understood that I felt something. And I thought what would happen is I would close my eyes, some wisdom would come out, and then I would wake up. And that's what I thought happened.
Mhm.
As again, I'm having so many wow moments as this was happening. And suddenly he was saying, this is how it works. And I said, well, why did no one tell me?
See, yeah, you know what? This is great because I'm sure a lot of people, even myself, it was like, hey, what's going on? But it's these little things that people, and with this interview, I mean, a lot of people are going to connect with this because we have
Yeah,
so many new members all the time, and I get tons of messages, and I have to, like, just ask in the group, and
yeah.
they're afraid sometimes because they feel like they're asking something stupid. So I typically have to respond and things like that. Um, how long did it take, if you remember? See, I'm keep going back
Yeah,
to the beginning, the
yeah,
blend,
yeah.
the blending, and how did that feel? Um, and until you felt really comfortable with it.
Okay, I'd say probably, I'm guessing, no, I am guessing here. I'm saying around about a year or so. Around about a year of sitting maybe weekly, and then I would sit in my own time outside of the circle. And and this is one of the really important things that I think would probably really help the people that are just beginning at this journey, is saying, don't be afraid to sit on your own. Really don't be afraid to sit on your own, because what you're doing is really, if I was to sum up altered states and trance, is about love and relationships. Your intention to connect with your spirit friends should be unconditional love in both directions. And what you're building is a relationship. Every time you sit, you are getting to know them better. You're becoming stronger, you become more adept. So when you even sit maybe on your own, have a voice recorder or your phone, it's usually got a record function. Sit with your spirit team and say, guys, I want to sit and I want to practice my philosophy. And your philosophy will be a lot of your own thoughts. However, as soon as your guides connect to you and you feel their presence and you feel these changes within your auric field, and you start to feel their personality impressing upon you, and then you feel these words in your mind, and you start to feel, if I don't say this word, I'm going to burst. Say that first word, and then say the second word, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. And then what you'll find is that the more you speak, the spirit world will naturally come in, and they will kind of move that conversation in whatever direction it needs to go in, and they will speed up the flow, and it will feel more natural. And you'll say whatever you say. The words really aren't important. What's important is to spend that time with them, have that connection, say whatever you like, then finish it, thank them, and then go back to it again a few days later or a week later. Maybe just do 10 minutes and do it regular, a little bit and often, and understand how you're actually working.
You know what? You're already answering questions I've yet to ask you. And so I love when this happens.
Sorry.
Really love it. And, you know, just recently in the group, I just talked about, you know, when people are first starting out, that I wanted to do more of the interviews of, you know, when they are sitting on their own at first.
Yeah.
And so this is great information right now. Now, I just realized that typically I'm on my game here. Typically I have us both on gallery view on our, when I hit record. So right now I'm staring at you instead of me and you. And so we'll see how this records. So guys, I'm sorry if it comes out, we're just both taking turns talking. We both show up. I really apologize for that, but I think it's going to be fabulous.
Is there anything I've done? Is there something I can do?
No, I think we're going to be fine. I just don't know how, you know, typically it's side by side.
I've got on the top here, gallery view. Shall I see if I can change it? How's that?
Okay. I'm just wondering what it's going to show up when I get the interview, you know, back from you. But I think it'll be fine. This is awesome.
No worries.
So sitting in the power.
Yeah.
Is that important?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I run a regular mediumship group where we sit and we do one-to-one and working psychically. And we start every single time we meet, we always start by sitting in the power, every time. And when we meet for trance, in the development groups for trance, we always start with sitting in the power. For me, it's vital. Yeah.
I'm trying to not ask you a second question here.
That's cool.
When you were first sitting and
Yeah.
you had the members with you, and then you finally started talking.
Yeah.
Was there a point when you were with that one group, the same people in that one medium you were talking about? When did you just stay with them forever, or not forever, for a long time? Or when did you get moved to another group of people, another development circle?
Yeah, it kind of it came to its natural end probably after a couple of years, and I went to a place called Cobber Hill in Scarborough, and it was the week-long retreat, and I did my very first week-long course just doing trance, and Steve was the tutor, and we did that for the week. And on the say Tuesday night, it starts on a Sunday afternoon. On the Tuesday evening, these students have a chance to practice the skills that they're learning over the course of that week, and they kind of played a trick on me. They said, "Oh, we need a couple of volunteers, and you've been volunteered." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "Can I do trance then during the student dem?" And you get about 5 minutes or so, and you sit in front of, I think there was about 75 people. And so I did like 5 or 6 minutes of trance where my guides were speaking, and or a particular guide, this person I was talking about earlier, and that was a bit of a wow moment for me, because I'm not the sort of person to put myself forward for stuff like that. I just said yes for some reason. I didn't really know why I'd said yes. So anyway, it went really well, and it was quite a profound moment for me, and you know, a lot of that credit goes to the great tuition that I had. And So when I went back, I messaged the guy whose circle it was, and I said, you know, I'm going to move on now. I need to kind of do a different path. And so then a local circle came up where there was maybe about 10 or 15 of us, and we met up again sort of once a week, and we kind of did the normal mediumship stuff, but nothing trance wise. So that was why I used to sit on my own, because I have a room, one of the bedrooms at home here is it's just the seance room, it's just the spirit work room. And I would just sit in the cabinet, not that you need a cabinet, I would just sit in the cabinet, connect to my guys. I'd say, let's sit for trance, or let's just sit to connect, let's just be in the power. And I would just do that sort of several times a week. And so really that was where a lot of my development happened with the trance, was sitting on my own. Because really I was sitting with the spirit world, which is, they're my real tutors. So.
See, I like that you brought up, you know, you sat in the cabinet. You don't have to
Yeah.
sit in the cabinet, but we do have people that are sitting on their own and they're sitting in their cabinet. And for
Yeah.
some, it just feels better for them to be in there.
Yeah.
But I like that you said you don't have to have it. Do you just, I know that you said that you are also developing your physical mediumship.
Yeah.
And, you know, how different was that for you? You know, as you're singing for trance and philosophy, was there something else different that you did? Did you have to like change the entire room or the people that you were with, or?
No, because see, the great thing is when you're working with altered states, and at the end of the day, we're going to be in an altered state from when we get up in the morning to when we go to bed at night. And so the trance is just kind of a natural progression from being aware, you know, knowing everything that's happening. Then we go to trance, we allow the philosophy to happen. And as I was sitting, I was finding that I was really feeling that pull from the solar plexus. And I'd had 2 or 3 readings, no, probably more than that. And every time my spirit team kept saying, we want you to sit to develop physical mediumship. And I said, yeah, okay. And then the next year they would say the same thing. And I would say, yeah, okay. And the next year they would say the same thing. And I said, okay, right, I will. So then I made the cabinet. I dedicated it to physical mediumship and trance. And the process is still the same. I set my intent. I sit in the cabinet. We have the curtain closed. My father sits with us, and a friend as well. And my mum has sat, and my wife has sat with us. And the most important thing is just about accepting that you will be aware of what is happening. And we have had quiet voices speaking. We've had the people touched, smells, sounds, the shadows, and seeing spirit people in the room, and some partial materializations. But I've been conscious all the time. So all of this is happening, and to some degree, I'm aware of what happens. But again, I sat there and thought, nothing can be happening because I'm aware of it. And of course, it isn't necessarily the case that you're going to fall unconscious. And for me, I wasn't. And it was a big learning curve, because I thought it was, again, I thought it was all in my mind. And the other people outside watching me in the cabinet, they must, maybe they were mistaken. They didn't see what they said they saw. They didn't hear or smell what they said they saw or smelled. And I kind of thought that they were not hallucinating, but I kind of doubted whether it was really happening, because I was aware of what was happening too.
Wow. You know what? I love how you're like always second guessing everything, no matter what. And I guess that you did say that you really wanted to always have that proof and the proof. And
Yeah.
So with your people within your circle and people that sit with you,
Yeah.
do you feel that developing trance, let's go back to the trance, can you eventually, if you don't have like this huge amount of people that are readily available to want to do a circle with you, can you just sit with one person? And okay.
Sorry, to develop trance?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You can sit on your own. If you sat for 10 years only on your own, you could become a phenomenal trance medium, because the big secret, if there is such a thing, is that you need to develop your relationship with your spirit team. And therefore, I don't need anyone else to be involved with it at all. So you can, you know, for the guys that I know in America, it's a massive country, and maybe connecting with other people that want to do trance is difficult. However, that shouldn't stop you. I've seen people say, and I've even read in books, trance cannot be developed on your own. And that's rubbish, because the relationship is you and your spirit team. I need no one's help at all to do that. And so that's the great thing, that this is just a myth that people are perpetuating. Don't sit in trance, it's dangerous. Dangerous for who?
Yeah.
If you set your intention, which we do before we do any spirit work, then you know that as long as your motivation is unconditional love, and you connect to a loving feeling when you're connecting to the spirit world, then what's the danger? I fail to see where the danger is. So I would say to people, absolutely do it and love it.
Wow. You know what? Actually, I really love that you are saying that you could just sit on your own and develop, and then, you know, eventually, if you want, you can connect with other people. People here, I will say, it's very hard to find people, and you know, that with, you know, that live near you. A lot of people are resorting to working online and having development circles online. But a lot of people are going to love your answer on this one, because
It's the truth. It really is.
I can't find anything. Nobody will sit with me. Even my husband won't sit with me, or something like that. So you're very lucky that your family members coming in and supporting you with this. It's beautiful. And
I am lucky, and that's probably, you know, if you're going to sit to develop physical mediumship or even trance, I mean, even so, I have a couple of monthly circles where we have maybe, say, 7, 8, 9 people all want to practice their trance mediumship philosophy and all so on. And probably one of the biggest things that helps us is we've got a harmonious group. They genuinely want the best for each other. And that's probably one of the biggest things, because you're all in that same room. We've all got an emotion, we've all got a heart, we can feel other people's energy. So if you're harmonious, it makes it a nice place to be. And so I would say, you know, when you go into a circle, if it doesn't feel harmonious to you, if that energy just doesn't feel right, then walk away. Don't fight it, because it will be very hard.
I absolutely agree, and I hear a lot about that. And so your answer of sitting on your own is going to be like hitting a gold jackpot for a lot of the members, thinking that they couldn't do it on their own. So do you teach, and where do you teach, and where are you located, so members know where you are?
So I'm in Norfolk, in England, in the east of England. We're kind of from the same county as Steve. So this is it. There's a lot of connections here. Like I say, he's a good friend, and we're both from the same county. So there's a town called King's Lynn, which is about 20 miles away from where I am, and twice a month I have 2 consecutive Saturdays, and we have a great group of guys and girls, and we connect and we sit to develop it. We discuss how it should be done. We practice it, we improve our understanding, and then I will connect with them. I will connect with their spirit teams, and I'll say to them, what do you want to do this week with your team, with your medium? And so that we constantly involve the spirit world in this. And this was a big thing. Again, I learned this with Steve. You know, so we would do these workshops, and he would take us on a guided journey. And unbeknown to us, all the students, we would be sitting there and we'd be going off and seeing waterfalls or whatever we were seeing and the spirit world was showing us. And at the time, he would then be connecting with the individual teams of all the students. And he would say to them, now, what do you want to do with your medium? Because they're a vital part of the process, aren't they? Yeah. And that was like a, wow, you can speak to the spirit world like that? And of course, he'd probably laugh as he watches this. And as I say, that was an epiphany to me. I was like, I didn't realize you could do that. That was amazing. And And then he would say to us, well, what do you guys want? And invariably there would be a disparity between what we thought we wanted and what our spirit teams wanted from us. And when you involve both sides, you're going to get a better picture of what you actually need, where your development needs to lie. And that's one of the processes that I go through now every time that we sit, and involve the spirit world with it. Don't just say, I want, I want, I want. Say to the spirit world, what do you need?
You know what? This happens to me every so often. So everybody knows I have lots of questions. And really, I felt like I didn't ask very many questions, because as I'm looking and looking down, I'm going, nope, he already answered that. I didn't ask that. And you actually did it all, except maybe two. And that's towards the end. But I'm going to tell you, I love this interview. I love everything that you have shared, because these are the little pieces of things, the basic, the foundation of everything. Yeah. That people are missing sometimes, especially when you're first new and you're coming in. When somebody finds the interview on YouTube or in the group and you're the first one, they're going to be like, oh my God, I love it. I love it. And so one other question really quick.
Sure.
Are you ever, or are you currently offering any type of tutorship or classes or anything where somebody can do that online with you?
I'm not offering anything online. I mean, maybe that's something I've got to think about, but I've got to be honest. When it comes to online mentorship for mediumship, I see its value, but one thing that I really like is that when we're doing trance, I like to feel the energy. I like to be in that energy with the students at the same time. How are they feeling? What's going on? What do I need to do? And I kind of feel, I wonder whether I'd be a little bit disconnected by if someone was just sat in the room on the other side of the world. I kind of want to be there with them. And if, you know, they're struggling, I want to feel what's going on with that energy. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, maybe things will change. I mean, I'll have a think about that, but
think about it, because there's so many people that can't travel over there, and they're going to love talking with you.
You know, and if people want, you know, if people want me to come and do courses, workshops or whatever, and, you know, if those opportunities arise, contact me on Facebook. We'll see what we can work out.
Yes, so, absolutely. So that would be the, and you know what, in my last video within the group, I did mention that I was going to push a little bit of, you know, find out, or, and I love that you could potentially travel this way as well. So,
yeah.
So looking back at your development,
yeah.
What was the biggest mistake that you ever made, if you could think about it for yourself, that you wish you didn't do?
Probably not placing enough trust in my guide team. Thinking that it was all about me and what I needed, and not always considering what do they need. It was always why, what, who are you, where did you live, what was your name, this, that and the other. And I kind of didn't see the bigger picture, that really what I needed to be asking was, what do you want to do with me? What are your wishes? I had no idea what trance was, or physical mediumship. I had no intention. I tell you what, my sole plan was, I said, I'm going to go to these development classes, and my sole ambition was, I want to give one person one message. That's it. Nothing else. That was the sole result of my ambition at the time, because it was just curiosity. And you know, as time has gone by, I can say, hand on heart, that spiritually and emotionally, it's made me a much better person. I am a far better person for doing what I do now than I was beforehand. And that's down to the work that I've done on myself. And I'd say it's really important for people to work on themselves. Don't just expect mediumship to be a walk in the park. Sometimes it feels tough, and sometimes you really have to dig deep, because whatever's going on in your normal life, as I call it, that's going to directly affect your spiritual unfolding, because sometimes you just have to take a step back. Sometimes it'll feel like you're walking through treacle, And you just kind of, you have to take a breath sometimes and just think, when it feels like it's plateaued and the spirit world have deserted you, maybe you just need a little time out.
That's good. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Great advice.
But
You're a great teacher. I can feel like, all right, I'm just going to say, I'm in California, and I can feel your beautiful energy. I can feel that incredible love that you have for the work that you do for the spirit world. And I'm telling you, if you could get you over this way, and if we can't get over to you, I mean, people would sign up for this, because just the way you're talking, the way you're sharing, and helping others, it's beautiful.
well,
I just had to say that to you. So
no, it's really kind. At the end of the day, you really have to love what you're doing. And when you're dealing with this kind of work, you're developing the person behind the medium, and you're having to look at their issues. And if they're struggling to connect in a certain way, everyone has different issues. Mine might have been trust. I just thought it was me, and I didn't trust. Maybe another person has had a lot of stuff going on with their heart, where they feel that they can't allow themselves to feel vulnerable, which is what you feel when you connect to the spirit world. There's this new energy has suddenly approached your auric field. You feel their presence, and you're like, what's happening? I don't like this. And you kind of want to back off. But if there's someone there to say, do you know what, it's okay because you feel like this, because X, Y, and Z is happening. And then you think, okay, so I'm not going mad, I'm not having a heart attack. No, you're fine. And it's just having someone to explain stuff like that. And it's have people that genuinely care about your development and you as a person. You know, at the retreat up in Yorkshire, and if people want to get in contact, you know, I can tell them about that. And we cover lots of different aspects of mediumship. You know, the primary focus is about the well-being and the development of the person, not just making them a medium and taking them off the conveyor belt and there's another one out of the door. This is about looking after you and your well-being. And I think there's a lot to be said, but caring for the person as much as the medium.
I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So one final question, and
Yeah.
actually, I don't even know if I should ask you this, because you've already shared so much and you've given such great advice. Is there any last thoughts, any last piece of advice that you could give somebody new coming in? What would be the most important thing that you would want to tell them?
Do you know what? Without a shadow of a doubt, I would say that explore altered states and trance before anything else. I mean, before connecting and doing psychic work. I think that if you imagine, trance is kind of seen as, if mediumship was a tree, trance would be, and philosophy would be, on a branch right at the top, away from all the normal people that do mediumship. For me, altered states is the tree. And then all aspects of mediumship revolve around understanding what is an altered state, how to go into it, how to strengthen your connection with the spirit world. And whether you're doing a one-to-one reading, whether you're doing healing, whether you're doing, say, trance philosophy or trance communication, physical mediumship, all of them revolve around entering an altered state, strengthening that state and working with it. All of them do. So I would say to the guys, work with your altered states and trance, not necessarily philosophy, but you can do if it appeals to you. I love it personally. It's a wonderful aspect. Start with that first. Don't worry about whether you're working psychically, because at the end of the day, when you're working in that altered state, you're connecting with the spiritual energy of the person in front of you. Feel their energy. What do they feel like as a person? And what does, if I was standing up in front of the students, rather than say, show me images, which are great, images are great, they give you the evidence and sometimes you hear stuff. But if I say in my head to the spirit communicator, I want you to come close, I want you to blend your energy with mine, and I want to feel your essence. I want to feel your personality, what you're like as a person. And you will find that you will take on the characteristics and the persona maybe of that communicator, as well as yourself, and you'll still be able to get that information, but the audience will feel that spiritual presence. It won't just be like you're reeling off information. You will become that communicator, and there will be no doubt. There will be no doubt that you have the spirit world with you. And I'm convinced, and I remain to be dissuaded, that altered states is not the center of all mediumship, and that should be explored first.
Wow. I'm going to tell you one thing right now, is that I'm going to be listening. This is probably one of the greatest interviews I've ever done. And I will have to watch this one over, because I'm sitting here like, okay, my God, what other question do I have for him? Because you're so passionate, and everything that you're saying is so important. And I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going to watch this one over. I am so grateful to you. And thank goodness that you did this, because so many people are going to love this interview and all the information that you share. And I want you guys to know that if you want to connect with Andrew Codling, I'll call him Andy.
Yeah.
I'll have his link here. You can reach him through Facebook if you want to find out anything about him, or classes or anything like that. If you want him to come to where you're at, definitely reach out to him. I'm absolutely going to recommend him, because you could feel the energy, you could feel the passion there, and the advice that he has given is just fantastic. I am so grateful to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure, my pleasure.
And I will tell you, I am very, very positive that I will be reaching out to you for a part 2. Eventually, I will be doing that. So I just want you to know that now.
I've got my thinking cap on. That's fine. I'd look forward to it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I don't want you to take off yet. Thank you so much for doing this. Also, guys, remember, you can find all the links underneath the interview. And I will see you guys later. Thank you again. Have a great day and have a fabulous time. Get to sitting, sit on your own, listen to this interview at least a few times, and it will just be like hitting gold. You guys have a great day. Thank you.